So what do you recommend for recovery? Because like you said, the conventional wisdom is you do a strenuous workout, whether it's lifting, hit
Sure.
stuff, whatever, and then you stretch, and then you go
Yeah.
home, have a protein shake, whatever. So what do you recommend as an alternative to that for recovery?
I go home, have the shake, and recover.
Okay, so nothing.
So in my gym, I mean, honestly, the best thing to do is just have a coffee, relax, have a smoothie, have a tea. A lot of this kind of idea of stretching after you work out comes from this notion of the importance of having a cool down. We have to have a cool
Mm,
down. To be
yeah.
honest with you, I don't know that there's any science behind like having to have a cool down. Of course, if you just came off the treadmill and your heart rate is 180 beats per minute, obviously it's good to kind of like start walking after it so your heart rate can gradually come down. That, of course, is important. But the idea of stretching comes from this idea of like needing to cool down. Well, if your heart rate's 130 beats a minute, 140, which it probably is from doing, a hardcore workout, you don't need you don't need that much of a cool down to get it back into a more normal functioning rate. So just between me walking from the weight room to my car is enough of a cool down. In my gym they have like these kind of wonderful spa beds, and it kind of gives you a hydro massage, and so that's my
Oh,
favorite way
that's
to cool
lovely.
down. Take
Okay.
10 minutes on the hydro massage bed.
Okay. I like that. So there's another thing that this reminds me of is I don't know if you're familiar with the TB12 method, right? Tom Brady, where he talks about where he doesn't really lift weights, he's
Hmm.
doing more plyometrics and you know different kinds of exercises with rubber
Yep.
bands versus heavy weights, and
Yep.
he credits that as part of his the reason he was able to play at a high level until his mid 40s, which is almost unheard of in the NFL. So what is it about muscle activation, which it sounds like that's what he's doing as well, that does help you, stay young and keep those muscles fresh and young?
Absolutely. I mean, if we look at someone as they get older, someone who's more prone to injury, all of that is related to muscles not working properly. My teacher, Greg Roskoff, who created muscle activation technique, and he's located out of Denver. He will emphatically say that age is a symptom of muscle tightness, and if we want to turn back the clock of age, keep your muscles working properly. The absolute wrong thing to do is for someone who's got tight muscles to actually put more load on those muscles. That's the wrong thing to do. Those muscles aren't even working to begin with, and now you're giving them a load. Tom Brady, I actually hadn't heard that before, but somebody of his caliber is probably working. I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, but just it makes sense that that person that he's working with is connected to this idea of isometrics. Isometrics is really important, but doing them also correctly is
Yeah,
also
sure.
important. And then understanding that you want to build when you're doing isometrics properly, aka muscle activation, what you're doing is you're increasing the stress tolerance of that muscle so that it doesn't shut down.
Mm,
Tom Brady has probably got a well-oiled machine where his stress tolerance, obviously, level for being able to get hit, somebody tackling him and throwing around, et cetera, et cetera. His stress tolerance level is really high. His muscles are working at an optimum capacity because of that neuromuscular connection. So, for anybody listening, we can turn back the clock. Again, muscle tightness is a sign of the body protecting itself. And so, if you've got pain in your lower back, if you've got pain in your knees, if you've got tightness, in your hamstrings or in your shoulders, that's the body protecting itself. And so, the important thing is for us to start addressing that imbalance, addressing, that wasn't the right word, but addressing the instability. That was the word I was looking for.
sure.
Instability, and getting those muscles to start working so they're doing what? stabilizing joints, and moving bones without causing more stress.
Got it. Got it. I have to say this was fascinating. I think just at the most basic level, it makes sense to me just from
Yeah,
my own personal experiences and dealing with, you know, post workout pain from my, thinking about my days growing up as an athlete, things like that.
yeah,
Very amateur, high school level athlete, but same idea, right? We're all athletes. Anyone that works out or exercises, I think, is an athlete, and I think this is great advice for
yeah,
people who, are not afraid to go against conventional wisdom, and instead of listening to what people have been saying is listening to their bodies. And I think thinking about the stuff that you've talked about and the advice that you give, just again from my own experience, I'm like, yeah, that did work for me when I tried that almost on accident kind of thing. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Where can people learn more about your techniques, your yoga? Where can people find you on social media?
Well, I hope you share the links. People can find me on my website, yogiaaron.com. You can go find me on Instagram, yogi_Aaron. And just message me. Find me on Instagram, message me pain free, and then that will start to get the conversation rolling. If any of your listeners want to live a life free from pain, contact me because what I'm doing is working. I have thousands of testimonials coming in from people all the time thanking me for giving them their life back. And you probably, or some of your listeners probably have been using stretching, and while it feels
Yeah.
good in the moment, it's actually making them weaker, and they can feel that because they still wake up every morning stiff and in pain. So if you want to live pain free, find me on Instagram, message me pain free. Let's get the conversation started.
I love it. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on.